Hello, everybody. Jason Burggraaf, Executive Director of the Greater Ottawa Home Builders Association. We're talking about new home sales stats here in Ottawa, and joining me is
Cheryl Rice, and I'm president of PMA Brethour Realty here in Ottawa, and I'm really looking forward to sharing the information that I'm bringing to this podcast. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that, Cheryl.
Yeah.
So let's dive right into it.
Okay.
The very first thing we're going to look at is new home sales for this June,
Right.
which is kind of the latest data we have.
Right.
When you look at the data which goes 2020 to 2024, just again this month, the big thing that jumps out, of course, is that June of 24 is about 50% of what June of 2020
Right.
was.
Right.
And we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of ask you to try to give some context around kind of June numbers in general. Like, do you typically sort of see that as kind of a ramping up of the sales seasons and it kind of slowing down as the summer kind of quieter? What's kind of the general kind of flow of sales through a year and kind of where we are when we're talking about kind of year to date halfway through?
Right. So usually June is a little busier. July is when it usually starts to slow down for the summer. July, August being usually the slowest. So what we've seen is a little unusual for June, but we've had really good month-over-month increases in sales. And sometimes a little bit of a fluctuation isn't really anything to worry about. So, and usually what's driving that kind of fluctuation, if not vacation time when people take their summer vacations, but it would be the availability of inventory of product.
The other thing on this particular chart for this month is 2021 sort of, again, is half of 2020,
Right.
where there was a big drop off. But as we transition to year to date numbers, 2021 was actually, the year to date number was actually higher in terms of sales than 2020.
Yeah.
So what I want to kind of ask is the pacing of that, because right in 2020 we're already into COVID.
Right.
By March of that
Right.
year.
Right.
But COVID really didn't affect home sales,
Right.
not through 2020, and 2021 was even better.
Yeah.
2022, a little bit off, but not by much. But then it's 2023 that kind of sees the drop off.
Right.
So it's not really like COVID really didn't affect kind of home sales through that period of time.
Well,
why are we seeing kind of a drop off in 2023 and then the continuous slowness in
Right.
2024?
So, yeah, let me provide a little bit
Please.
of context there. We see it a little differently.
Okay.
So, looking back at 2020 and 2021, there was this it was an enormous buying frenzy, right? And remember FOMO, fear of missing out, right? There was a lot of that going on, and prices were skyrocketing during that period. By spring 2022, prices had reached their peak in both new and resale at that point in time. So in 2020 we had, I think it was April, where sales just plummeted due to COVID and the lockdowns and so on and so forth. And then followed by that crescendo of sales in 2021, 2022. And then by spring 2023, that's when the market kind of fell apart. So I think 2023 was a real test to our market resiliency. And the theme for 2023 and even going into 2024 has been affordability, for sure. And I know you talk about that a lot.
Yep.
We've been dealing with high inflation, high interest rates, high borrowing costs. We've had immigration numbers, that have contributed to a housing shortage, at near epic proportions, especially for rentals, another sweetheart topic of ours. So, so the context, that's kind of the context for what happened. In 2024, if we're looking at comparisons, our year-to-date numbers are 1,861. And that's a remarkable 36% over 2023. Now, we have to remember, though, 2023 is when the market started to slow down. And, last year, buyers were significantly sidelined. They were waiting for something to happen. They were seeing, these hikes in the interest rate over a period of time, and they went up relatively quickly. Now we've seen a couple of cuts in the interest rate. We expect to see a couple more this year, but so far still some hesitancy on the part of the consumer where demand continues to be tempered.
So, and do you find interest rates are kind of the biggest factor in that kind of consumer confidence and consumer wanting to get into the market, or are there other things that kind of also hold them back?
I think that interest rates are a concern only for their borrowing ability and their day-to-day budgeting and things like that. The mortgage rates are not going to be affected by what's going on with interest rates now. That's already baked in. We probably won't see any changes to the mortgage rates until 2025. I think it's a level of just overall consumer confidence, knowing that the interest rates are going down. And it's good news. Don't get me wrong. It's good news. But is it enough to drive up demand and have everybody hitting the sales centers to buy that new home? It's going to take time.
Can we take any of that activity as kind of and cast it forward for 2024? I think earlier this year, the sentiment that I was kind of getting, at least from home builders, was there was, I think, expectation that things would kind of pick up in the second half of the year and in the summer, and things were slow, but there seemed to be kind of a gain in confidence. That seems to have kind of eased back now.
Reality.
Right. And you've kind of, I think you've already kind of hit that of, you know what, we're not expecting this huge rebound throughout the rest of this year so far.
Yeah. And any discussions that we have with our builder clients, we're saying, okay, look, 2024 is what it is. We're recovering. And, we will bounce back. But, maybe the focus should be on what strategies and innovation are you going to come up with for 2025 when the market starts to come back, right? And the interest rates will probably not be increased as quickly as they decrease. So it's going to take a little time, which is why our forecast for 2025, I think our internal mantra is, thrive in 2025, right?
Right.
So yeah. And I know what you mean. The sentiment amongst builders was, they're going, yeehaw, sales are going to be great the first half of this year, and they've been good. And not that I like to put a number on a forecast, but, if we're at about 1,800 now, halfway through the year, we could probably achieve around 4,000 or just a little under 4,000 for the year, which is not bad for a market in recovery.
Right. Yeah. It's growth in sales has been good.
Yes.
But it's not been sort of exponential month over month growth, like one might hope for.
Exactly.
Overall.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's kind of despite when we look at the average price year over year change of growth of 2% month to month in the chart we're kind of looking at now, the actual kind of change year over year month over month of prices since about the spring of 2023 has been really quiet. Like it's been low. It's been 2% or even less, given PMA Brethour stats on what those prices are.
Right.
But despite sort of that low price growth, the sales and the buyers aren't there.
Right. But there's still the question of affordability. Is it low enough especially for those first time buyers wanting to get into the market, right? Pre-COVID era, we were seeing single digit year over year growth pre-COVID. Very stable market, in terms of price growth, very affordable and attractive. We had a lot of out-of-town buyers and investors coming to Ottawa. I remember in 2017, oh my gosh, I heard that there were like busloads of investors and buyers coming in from Toronto, scooping up multiple units of townhomes, for example, right? So very, very busy market then, very active. And then in 2019, it got even more active and the market started to heat up. And what happens then is your prices start to elevate at an extremely rapid pace. Well, that's not sustainable, right? So it's going to, march down. And even again, looking at the COVID era, our price increases, they peaked at, I think it was 29%. Year over year for the market overall. That's huge.
Yep.
And then in 2021, we had average gains of 22% in 2021. So we're still hot market, but again, not sustainable. So price growth quickly reduced. And by 2023, we saw only 3% growth. And by 2024, we're only seeing 1% growth. To your point.
Yes.
So, sorry, it took me that long to get
No.
there, but that's kind of the trail, in terms of how we got here.
Yeah, and I kind of, if my memory serves, at the time, 2019, 2020, and that kind of huge price growth, the idea or the sentiment that kind of seemed was that we had seen such huge jumps in Toronto and Vancouver and bigger communities across the country, but Ottawa had not.
Right.
Kind of seen that. And if at the time it seemed like kind of the line was Ottawa was just sort of just catching the wave at that point and kind of catching up to where price growth could have gone. And of course, because it was a couple of years behind, it just jumped so dramatically.
Yeah. And what we've been seeing though over the last year and into 2024 is we've seen a lot of builders doing what they can to improve affordability.
Yeah.
They're listening to the market. And I love that. Whenever I see a vendor listening to their customers, I get really excited about that. Yeah. And that's what our Ottawa builders and developers have been doing. They know that they need to bring their prices down. How are they going to do that? Well, they're going to come out with smaller build forms. So, a townhome, for example, you can have a townhome for under $500,000, right? Now, it may not have a finished basement and it may have base specs, but it's affordable and it's a miracle for first-time homebuyers who want to get into the market.
Right.
So it's all really important stuff. So they've been doing that, and they're often, over the last year or maybe several months, they've actually reduced prices by $100,000 on some homes, right? So it's taken that higher bar, that higher level, and they've brought it down. And that's what the market needed in order to move sales.
So let's end this part of the conversation here. We're going to come back and talk about product and then also areas around town that you see the majority of new home building. So Cheryl, thanks very much for this discussion. I'm so much looking forward to the next ones.
Thank you.
Thanks.